Hello, I'm JC Herring with the BBC. Noted journalist and filmmaker Najibullah Quraishi took a trip to Afghanistan recently and met with members of ISIS, the Taliban, and the highest levels of the Afghan government. Through his arduous and brave efforts, the world has a better understanding of what exactly is going on in the Middle East. As I'm sure you know, the Middle East has been in perilous conditions since the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, following the attacks on the World Trade Center on September 11th. There are potholes in the roads the size of cars, which are all caused by improvised explosive devices known as IEDs. Gunfire and violence is a regular occurrence in the region. Contrary to what you might believe, the violence is much worse in regions of the country where the Taliban do not have full control and are fighting with the government and U.S. forces. In an interview with the headmaster of a school in a small town that was under total control of the Taliban, he stated that it didn't matter whether the Taliban or the Afghan government was in charge. The people were happy as long as there was no fighting. It seemed to be a trend that violence would cease when the Taliban were in control. Quraishi would meet up with members of the Taliban in regions that they solely controlled, and the regions were relatively calm and relaxed. It seemed as though there was less conflict in Taliban-controlled regions. The Taliban claim to control about 80% of Afghanistan, but the Afghan government says that they control up to 94% of the people. Of course, as the interview continued, U.S. foreign policy was brought up. The Taliban is incredibly hostile towards the U.S. right now, primarily due to the Trump administration's decision to suspend an ongoing peace deal with the Taliban. Leaders of the Taliban made it very clear that their number one goal is to keep peace in the region. They view the U.S.'s interventionism as the main factor that is crippling the region as a whole. For over a year, the Trump administration and the Taliban have been working on a peace deal to stabilize the region. However, after an attack resulting in the death of a U.S. citizen, Trump suspended conversations. This move only increased tension in the region, making the situation much more difficult to handle. While the deal is suspended, that doesn't mean it won't pick up back again. But even if it does, it may be a while before any documents are signed. The U.S. has proposed removing military presence in Afghanistan, but leaving officials to train Afghan troops and act as advisors. When asked about this, Taliban officials said that they would view any U.S. presence in the nation as a continuation of the invasion. Concluding Quraishi's meeting with the Taliban, he attempted to meet up with the leaders of ISIS. Quraishi was put on standby and waited for ISIS to contact him, but in the meantime, something peculiar happened. While he waited, more than 600 members of ISIS surrendered to the Afghan government, giving the government leeway to claim that ISIS has been defeated. Quraishi then met with Hamdullah Mohib, the Afghanistan security advisor. Mohib made it clear to Quraishi that ISIS has been defeated, even going as far to say that they have no territorial control in any part of the country anymore. While he did say that he wasn't sure if the ideology had been completely erased, he made it clear that ISIS no longer had any physical power in the region. Later, Quraishi received word that there is an ISIS cell that was waiting to meet him. After an arduous journey to a remote section of the Hindu Kush Mountains that included 3 car changes for security purposes, Quraishi finally reached an ISIS commander and conducted an interview. Interestingly, one of the first things he brought up was the military strength of ISIS. He said there were thousands of ISIS troops that were trained and heavily armed, and a good portion of them were former Taliban. He even said that in the event of a peace deal with the U.S., many more Taliban would join ISIS. Following Quraishi's meeting with ISIS, big foreign policy news came out of the U.S. It revealed that the government officials have been lying to everybody about the invasion of Iraq, and that the U.S.'s success in the war on terror had not been completely true. The U.S. had been losing the war on terror. The Taliban is stronger now than it was prior to the U.S.'s invasion in 2001, and they control more territory than in the invasion in 2001. Given the rather surprising information coming out of the U.S., Quraishi met with Mullah Beretta, co-founder of the Taliban. Mullah had been in a Pakistani prison for 8 years and was released in 2018. He said that the U.S. made a big mistake coming to Afghanistan. Their goal was to get one person, Osama bin Laden, and he's dead now. The U.S. is still in Afghanistan, destabilizing the region in a dangerous way. Beretta is confident in the Taliban's ability to defeat ISIS and bring peace to the region, given the U.S.'s removal from Afghanistan. While the U.S. is far from expelling itself from Afghanistan, given a peaceful exit, the Taliban, ISIS, or the Afghan government will have to fight for power in the country. Although no one agrees on much, the consensus in Afghanistan is that U.S. interventionism has led to more destabilization than any other force. I'm JC Herring with the BBC.